You know how everyone always says data is the new gold?
Right.
But I was thinking maybe privileged access is more like the keys to the vault.
Mm.
We're diving into privileged access management today, or PAM.
Oh, well.
And luckily, we've got this awesome guide, Questions to Ask PAM Vendors, to help us figure this whole thing out.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to give you the knowledge to confidently evaluate PAM vendors. So if you're thinking about implementing PAM or just want to make sure you're asking the right questions, this is for you.
That's a great goal. You're absolutely right to focus on this. PAM is all about controlling and monitoring who has access to your most critical systems and sensitive data.
Right.
Think administrator accounts, database credentials, those all-important API keys, anything that could cause serious damage if it fell into the wrong hands.
Yeah, it's scary stuff.
And with the increasing sophistication of cyber attacks, PAM's no longer optional. It's really a must-have.
So let's start unpacking this list of questions. The first section is all about general product capabilities. And this one question really stood out to me about the key differentiators between PAM solutions. What really sets these solutions apart, beyond the basic password vaulting we often hear about?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You know what I mean?
I know you mean. That's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
While most solutions offer those foundational features, right, the real differentiators, they lie in the details. Think about it this way. You wouldn't buy a car just because it's got 4 wheels and an engine, right?
Right.
You'd want to know about the safety features and fuel efficiency, the overall performance. Similarly, with PAM, you need to look beyond the basics and consider things like depth of integrations with your existing security stack. Can it talk to your SIEM? Can it talk to your AR?
Right.
How effectively does it monitor access in real time? Does it just record sessions? Or can it actually stop suspicious activity as it's happening? And of course, how user-friendly is it for both administrators and everyday users? You don't want a solution that's so complex it creates more problems than it solves.
Yeah, you're just adding more problems to your plate. It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Right.
You need something that really fits your needs and your environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Another important question in this section is about deployment models.
Yeah.
Cloud, on-premises, or a hybrid approach.
Yeah.
What factors should we be thinking about here?
Yeah. Well, your deployment model should align with your organization's overall IT strategy and also your comfort level with cloud solutions.
Okay.
Cloud-based PAM can be super quick to deploy and very scalable as your needs grow.
Yeah.
But some organizations might have, regulatory requirements or internal policies that kind of dictate where sensitive data can be stored. On-premises solutions give you more control, but it can be more complex to manage.
Right.
And then you have hybrid models that kind of offer the best of both worlds.
Right. So you got to figure out what's best for you.
The key is to choose a model that aligns with your risk tolerance, your budget, and your long-term IT goals.
It's not a one-size-fits-all.
Definitely not one-size-fits-all.
You've got to find that Goldilocks zone that's just right for your organization. Now, the next section, user and session management. This is where things start to get a little futuristic.
Yeah.
The source material talks about passwordless access.
Oh, yeah.
This sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie to me.
I know, right?
Can you break this down? How does this actually work, and why is this such a game changer for security?
Okay, so imagine a world where you no longer have to remember those crazy passwords.
Right.
Or worry about them being stolen in phishing attacks.
That'd be amazing.
Right. That's the promise of passwordless access. Instead of relying on something a password, it uses something you are. So biometrics, like a fingerprint or facial recognition, or something you have, like a digital certificate, or a temporary token that expires after a single use. And by removing passwords from the equation, you eliminate a huge attack surface for cybercriminals.
So it's like having a digital fingerprint instead of a key.
Exactly, yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I can't help but wonder, are there challenges with implementing something like this? I mean, it sounds great in theory, but how does it work in the real world with all the different systems and applications we use every day?
Yeah, you've hit on a key point. Passwordless access, it's not a magic bullet.
Right.
And implementation can be complex. You have to consider things like user adoption. Are people comfortable with biometrics? What about those legacy systems that might not support these newer authentication methods? These are all things organizations have to think about when evaluating passwordless solutions. It's about finding the right balance between enhanced security and practicality.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's always a balancing act, isn't it?
All right.
Okay. Let's move on to password and credential management. The source material specifically calls out API keys and SSH keys. I know these are important, but why do they need special attention in PAM,
Okay.
beyond just managing regular passwords?
So you can think of API keys and SSH keys as kind of like master keys to your applications and servers. They grant access to really critical functions and data, so that makes them highly valuable targets for attackers.
Right.
Imagine someone getting their hands on your API key. They could potentially control entire aspects of your application.
Wow.
Without even needing a username or password. And regular password managers, they often fall short when it comes to securing these types of credentials. PAM solutions, they step in to provide secure storage, automated rotation, and very specific control over who can access and use them.
Okay.
It's about layering on that extra level of protection.
So it's like having a separate high-security vault
Yes.
within the main vault.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we all know security is a team sport. That's where integration and compatibility comes in.
Okay.
The source material emphasizes how important it is for PAM to integrate with other security tools, especially SIEM and SOAR.
Yes.
Can you paint a picture for us of how this integration actually works in practice? What does it look like behind the scenes?
So imagine your PAM solution as like a key player on your security team, right?
Okay.
When you integrate it with your SIEM, your security information and event management system, it feeds all this valuable data about privileged activities into a central hub.
Right.
This gives your security team a holistic view of what's happening across your whole IT environment.
Yeah.
Now add SOAR to the mix, your security orchestration, automation, and response.
Okay.
And you can automate incident response actions based on the insights from your PAM solution.
So it's like having a security system that can
Yeah.
detect a break-in, but also like automatically call the police.
Exactly.
Lock down the house before any real damage is done.
Yes, exactly.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Now, I have to admit, compliance and audit, this is where I usually start to zone out a bit.
Yeah, I understand.
All those acronyms and regulations, it can be a little overwhelming.
It can be.
But the source material mentions reporting for standards like GDPR, IPAR, and SOX.
Right.
For someone who's not a security expert, why are these audits such a big deal? What's really at stake here?
You're right. Compliance can seem like this maze of jargon and paperwork.
It really can.
But here's the thing. These standards, they exist to protect sensitive data
Okay.
and make sure organizations are handling it responsibly.
Hmm.
GDPR, for example, is all about protecting personal data in Europe.
Right.
HIPAA focuses on protecting healthcare information in the U.S.
Mm.
And SOX sets standards for financial reporting.
Okay.
Failure to comply with these regulations, it can result in hefty fines, legal repercussions, and even damage to your reputation. And PAM plays a crucial role in demonstrating compliance because it provides those detailed audit trails, access logs, and reports that prove you're following the rules.
Okay, so compliance isn't just about checking boxes. It's
Yeah.
about protecting yourself from some pretty serious consequences.
Exactly.
Got it. Now, let's move on to risk management and threat detection. This section mentions using AI and machine learning to spot bad behavior.
Okay.
How does AI actually work in this context? Can you give us a real-world example?
Absolutely. Let's say you have an employee who normally logs in from the office every day,
Okay.
but then suddenly their privileged account is trying to access sensitive data from a coffee shop Wi-Fi network in like a different country.
Yeah, that's not good.
That's a major red flag, right?
Yes.
AI-powered PAM solutions, they can analyze these patterns and detect anomalies that might indicate a compromised account or even malicious activity.
Okay.
They can also learn from past events and become even more accurate at identifying potential threats. Think of it as having a super smart security guard who's always on the lookout for anything suspicious.
That's a pretty powerful image.
Yeah.
So it's like having a digital detective on your team?
Exactly.
Now, all this security technology is great,
Right.
but we can't forget about the people actually using these PAM solutions.
Yeah, that's important.
The next section in the source material, usability and user experience, this really resonated with me. It's not just about having the most advanced technology. It's about making sure it's actually usable for both administrators and everyday users.
You're absolutely right about that. You can have the most sophisticated PAM solution in the world, but if it's a nightmare to use, it's just going to create more headaches than it solves.
Okay.
Think about it. If administrators find the interface confusing, or users are constantly struggling to access the resources they need, they're more likely to find workarounds, which introduces security gaps.
Right.
That defeats the purpose of having PAM in the first place.
Yeah, totally.
So that's not just about building Fort Knox.
Right.
It's about making sure people can actually use the doors.
And get to their stuff.
Exactly. A user-friendly PAM solution should have a clear and intuitive dashboard that gives you a view of what's happening with privileged access. It should also offer self-service options. So if users need to do things like password resets or access requests, they don't have to constantly bug IT.
Oh, that's nice.
And maybe most importantly, it should have reporting that's easy to understand so you can quickly identify any red flags or potential issues.
It's like the difference between trying to navigate a city with a confusing paper map versus having a GPS that shows you exactly where you are and how to get to your destination.
That's a great way to put it. You want a PAM solution that guides you and makes your life easier.
Makes sense. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about access controls and policies.
Okay.
The source material mentions some terms that might sound a bit intimidating, like role-based and attribute-based access control.
Right.
Can you break those down for us? I have to admit, those terms always make me think of those complex flowcharts with a million boxes and arrows.
Well, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Think of access control as setting the rules of the road for privileged access.
Okay.
It's about defining who has access to what, when, and from where. Role-based access control is a really common approach, where you assign permissions based on a user's role within the organization.
Right.
So, for instance, a system administrator might have much broader access than a help desk technician.
Right, because their job responsibilities require it.
Exactly.
So it's like having different levels of security clearance, like in those spy movies.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Attribute-based access control takes things a step further.
Okay.
It considers various attributes like location device, time of day, or even the sensitivity of the data being accessed to grant or deny access. So it's about creating a more dynamic and fine-grained approach to security where access is tailored to the specific context of each request.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense. It's like having a security system that knows not just who you are, but also where you are, what you're trying to do, and whether you should be allowed to do it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Now, the source material also mentions two important security principles, least privilege and zero trust. These are becoming super popular in the cybersecurity world, and for good reason.
Those sound pretty serious. Are we talking about locking everything down and trusting no one?
Not exactly, but they do represent a shift toward a more proactive and vigilant security posture. Least privilege is the idea that users should only have the bare minimum level of access they need to perform their job duties.
Okay.
No more, no less. This minimizes the potential damage if an account is compromised. It's like giving someone a key to a specific room instead of a master key to the entire building.
So it's like a need-to-know basis for access.
Exactly. Zero trust takes this a step further by assuming that no user or device should be trusted by default, even those inside the network. Every access request needs to be verified and authenticated, regardless of where it's coming from.
Okay.
It's like having a security checkpoint at every door.
Even if you're already inside the building.
Even if you're already inside the building.
Okay, so it's all about verifying and validating every step of the way. It sounds pretty intense, but I can see how it would make things a lot more secure. Now, we've talked a lot about the technical aspects of PAM, but what about the human side of things?
Yeah.
Choosing and implementing a PAM solution is a big undertaking. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting this journey?
That's a great question, and it's something that often gets overlooked. Technology is only one part of the equation.
Right.
You also need to consider the people who will be using and managing the PAM solution. It's crucial to involve stakeholders from different departments early on in the process so you understand their needs and their concerns.
So it's like building a bridge between the IT department and the rest of the organization?
Exactly. Communication and collaboration are key.
Okay.
You need to explain why PAM is important, how it will benefit everyone, and address any potential concerns about workflow disruptions or added complexity.
Right.
It's also important to provide adequate training and support so users feel comfortable using the new system and understand how to follow those security best practices. Remember, PAM is a journey, not a destination.
I like that. A journey, not a destination.
Yes.
It's about continuous improvement, not just checking a box.
Exactly.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground here. User and session management, password management, integration with other security tools, compliance, risk management, access controls, usability, and even the human element of implementing PAM.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to digest,
It is.
but there's still more to consider, right?
Absolutely. Choosing a PAM solution is not a one-time purchase. It's a long-term commitment.
Okay.
And you need to think about the ongoing relationship with the vendor. The source material dedicates a whole section to deployment, maintenance, and support, and for good reason.
That makes sense. It's like buying a car.
Yes.
You don't just look at the sticker price. You also think about the cost of maintenance repairs and insurance down the road.
Exactly. When it comes to PAM, you need to consider things like deployment models. Will it be cloud-based on premises or a hybrid? What are the agent requirements? How often are updates released? What are the backup and disaster recovery options?
Those are all good questions.
And perhaps most importantly, what kind of technical support can you expect from the vendor?
Mm-hmm.
These are all crucial factors that can impact the overall cost and complexity of managing your PAM solution over time.
So it's not just about the initial setup, it's about the ongoing care and feeding of your PAM system.
Exactly.
Speaking of cost, let's talk money.
Okay.
The source material has a section on pricing and licensing, which, let's be honest, is often the elephant in the room.
You're not wrong. PAM solutions can range in price from a few $1,000s to hundreds of thousands.
Wow.
Depending on the features, the number of users, and the deployment model, it's essential to understand the vendor's pricing structure up front
Okay.
and make sure it aligns with your budget and your organization's growth plans.
So we need to be careful about those hidden costs that can sneak up on you. What are some red flags we should watch out for?
Watch out for vendors whose pricing seems too good to be true.
Right.
Often the base price might cover the core features, but you could get hit with additional fees.
For what? Like, what kind of stuff?
Things like session monitoring, API access, advanced analytics, or even customer support.
Oh, wow.
You really need to have a clear understanding of your needs
Okay.
and make sure that the vendor's pricing model is transparent and scales with your organization. Don't be afraid to ask for a detailed breakdown of costs and potential future expenses.
It's like those subscription services that start out cheap but then keep adding on fees for extra features. Before you know it, you're paying double what you originally signed up for.
Exactly. You want to avoid those surprises down the road. And finally, we come to the last section in the source material, vendor stability and roadmap. It sounds like this is all about looking into the future and making sure you're partnering with a vendor who's going to be around for the long haul.
It's like checking their credit score before you agree to go into business with them.
In a way, yes. You're not just evaluating a product, you're evaluating a company.
Right. You want to choose a PAM vendor with a proven track record, a solid financial foundation, and a clear vision for the future.
Okay.
What is their history in the PAM market? What is their customer satisfaction like? Do they have a robust product roadmap that shows they're innovating and keeping pace with the evolving threat landscape? These are all factors that can give you confidence that you're making a smart investment.
It's like choosing a travel companion. You want someone who's reliable, experienced, and knows where they're going.
That's a great analogy. Choosing a PAM vendor is a bit like embarking on a journey together.
Yep.
And you want to make sure you're in good company.
Okay, so we've reached the end of our deep dive into these PAM vendor questions. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And remember, choosing the right PAM solution is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. It's about finding the solution that best meets your organization's unique needs, security posture, and budget.
It feels like we've explored every nook and cranny of the PAM world today. We've covered a lot of ground, that's for sure. But hopefully our listeners feel equipped to ask the right questions
Yeah,
and make informed decisions.
absolutely. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about PAM being a journey, not a destination.
Right.
What does that actually mean for someone who's responsible for choosing and implementing a PAM solution?
Well, it means that PAM isn't something you just set up and forget about.
Okay.
The threat landscape is always changing.
Right.
New technologies are emerging.
Yeah.
And your organization's needs are going to evolve over time.
Right.
So a successful PAM implementation, it really requires ongoing monitoring, regular audits, and a willingness to adapt to new challenges.
So it's like tending a garden.
Yeah,
You have to keep weeding, watering, and pruning to make sure it stays healthy.
that's a great analogy.
And thriving.
You can't just plant the seeds and walk away.
Right.
You need to nurture your PAM solution over time to ensure it continues to meet those security needs.
That makes a lot of sense. But I imagine it can feel overwhelming, especially for someone who's new to the world of PAM.
Sure.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners who might be feeling a little intimidated by all this?
I would say don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's good advice.
There are a lot of resources out there, from industry experts to security consultants, who can guide you through this whole process of selecting and implementing the right solution. And remember, investing in PAM is an investment in the future of your business. It's about protecting your most valuable assets, your data, your reputation, and your customers' trust.
That's a great point. Security is an investment, not an expense.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of PAM vendor evaluation.
It has been a deep dive.
We hope you found it informative,
Yes.
engaging,
And hopefully a little bit empowering, too.
yeah, maybe even a little bit empowering.
Yeah.
Remember, knowledge is power.
It is.
And with the right questions, you can confidently navigate the complex world of PAM and choose a solution that will safeguard your organization for years to come.
That's right.
And who knows, maybe you'll even inspire your organization to become the next cybersecurity success story.
Maybe.
Until next time, stay curious, stay secure, and keep diving deep.